Hey everyone, welcome back. So, um, this is this is part one. This is the first video in the series on books two, and four of Plato's Republic. Now, I say books one, two, and four, but they're actually just excerpts from those books. Four is the one we'll read the most of. I have some videos that supplement this material. Um, And then we do also read in my Phil 1301 class, we do also read excerpts from books six and seven, but I consider those a separate lesson. So there should be a different title card for those. Um, it's actually, I really want to use um, an image from the Orson Welles animation and narration. Well, it's not really a direct narration of the cave. It might be a direct narration. I'll have to find that out before I record that video. It reads like a summary. Um, but it might be a different translation than what I'm used to. I don't think it's the translation I have. And in fact, the Hackett Complete Works came out 20 years after the animation. So, um, but yeah, I also have an allegory, or sorry, a Ring of Gyges video or two that we can use to supplement. So, but I do want to cover I want to use this video to introduce that series as well, actually. So hopefully no one jumps to that series and doesn't get the background on the Republic that I plan to lay out in this video. Um, Let me make sure that you can see what I expect you to see. I need to pull some things up on my end. So as always, you can access this material yourself. Um, Sorry, give me one second. All right. I need to respond to that. Let me pause. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Um, I have to move apartment soon, and so it's just something that couldn't wait. But neither can this video. So as always, these PDFs that I reference in the videos are available on my website, the ones with my annotations on them. So if you go to hillj.net/teaching, you can go down to the Republic, and this actually has so that's what I have pulled up over here. This has excerpts, well, it has all of book one, um, and it has excerpts from books two, most of book four, if not all of it, excerpt from book six, and all of book seven. Um, we are, there are 10 books in the Republic. There is another metaphor for the soul in the 10th book, which I actually haven't read the primary source material myself, but I know the symbols are and we'll cover them later. I'll just bring them up later. So I will mention something from book 10, but we won't read it. Um, and there's another text, trying to remember which one. I think it's the Phaedrus. There's another text where Socrates gives a different metaphor for the soul. And that's actually in one of the videos that you'll watch. So the Ring of Gyges helpfully is already, the video on the Ring of Gyges helpfully ties into the tripartite soul in Plato, which is what those two kind of concepts together, as well as listening and human excellence. What is arete or excellence or virtue? Virtue the, is We often think of virtue as ethical, but that's just because what it means to be ethical is to be an excellent human. Um, and then what it means to be an excellent human involves sustaining your own life, sometimes often being principled in a way that allows for the sustenance of your life and the lives of others. So you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need a stable environment, you need stable emotions, you can't harm others, you have to be self-forgiving, things like that. And so the Republic is considered a book on political philosophy, but other interpreters think of it as a book on moral psychology. So how can you not how should the city be organized, but how should the soul be organized? What is the just, what is the good life for the individual, for every individual, for the philosopher, which should be everyone? This is Plato using Socrates as a mouthpiece or a figure. Um, and yeah, I just want to cover like literally 2 pages from book one. Um, and what's important to me in book one is the role or the necessity or the importance of listening. So Socrates says, "Can't we persuade? We don't outnumber you in force. You could surely overpower us if it came to uh, somebody grabbing and forcibly detaining us and taking us to the party that you want us to go to." Because they invite him to go drinking and they want him to talk philosophy at his estate, at his Greek estate, off in the outskirts of town, I guess, after a festival. And it's really his father's property. And um, Socrates says, "Can't we persuade you to let us go?" And the man says, "Well, Polemarchus." Polemarchus says, "Can you persuade us if we won't listen?" And Glaucon says, "Surely not." And I don't think it's trivial or unintentional uh, that Plato starts such a significant work in this way. And so I want us to think about what it means to listen to others, but also to listen to ourselves. Um, that is an overarching theme from Bergson, from the Apology, um, in the Republic, and then in Aristotle as well. I would say the big themes in this kind of, I mean, we do have a separate unit. Excuse me, Bergson was a separate exam, but he starts us off on thinking about listening, spiritual auscultation of spiritual listening, listening to the soul, listening to intuition, to the dialectic. Um, and then in ancient philosophy, which is we've been in that unit with apology. I would say the main themes are arete or excellence, eudaimonia or living well, and these are actually on the board at this point. Um, so arete, virtue, excellence, goodness, fulfillment of potential, doing well, and eudaimonia, living well, flourishing, thriving. But eudaimonia, is the roots of the word go back to a sort of there's the daemon in there, the daemon that Socrates heard, the inner voice, the intuition, the listening that you have to listen to, the soul, the spirit that you have to listen to. Um, and you means like a positive, deep state, and ia is of like euphoria, happiness. So it's a character state. It's on good terms with your spirit. It's lasting. That's the you part. Um, I'm reminded of eustress as well. Eustress is a word in psychology for an appropriate mean or middle ground, middle amount of stress in your life that pressures you or pushes you to like have some urgency and engage with an outside world and get things done and move and regulate. I say regulate, but I mean circulate on a rhythm or a cycle. Um, Something stable and healthy. And not like the great thing about habit is that it's not as demanding as it was to learn it the first time. So it takes the workload off. You can layer different, like more complex polyrhythms of excellence and virtue that nourishes life. So I think like, a parent is somebody who can sustain a household and have enough time in their schedule to teach and instruct and sustain another life. Um, think any kind of caregiver or leader, a leader is somebody who does that. A leader is somebody who maintains enough rhythms and spaciousnesses to promote flourishing, well-being in other people as well as themselves. And that's the highest virtue. We started talking about that with the labor theory of value and the apology in the last series. Um, and so what is in the first book of the Republic, Plato asks, or Socrates asks, like, what is the craft of the soul or of justice? And that's what I've been describing as nourishing life or making good decisions that are good for the community. Um, we can look down at those. So listening is kind of in book one, and then in book two, we talk about the Ring of Gyges. Now, the Ring of Gyges is a magical ring that makes you invisible. It's found by a shepherd, and he uses it to get close to the king and then assassinate the king, bed the queen. Uh, Actually, he beds the queen first, and she helps him assassinate the king, and then he takes over the kingdom. And Glaucon, who is Plato's brother, but in the Republic, is just a fictional voice. These are probably all Plato's perspectives that he's probably honed or learned from other people talking for decades. Anyway, if you want to see stuff about the early, middle, and late dialogues breakdown and maybe the historical periodization of what Plato did to accomplish these different dialogues and why he did things the way he did, and the layering and the getting out voices, getting out perspectives and airing out false perspectives, false views, but also making it human, making it dynamic. There's an intentionality structure with an outside world. It's not just a mind absent from reality. Philosophy is never presented in such a way. It's always, now Aristotle goes and presents it that way, but Aristotle's very terse material is meant to was very is believed to have been lecture notes, is likely to have been lecture notes. So it's not meant to just be um, a sufficient explanation. You might have to think about it more, or hopefully somebody's like Aristotle would have used that extemporaneously while walking. We'll talk more about Aristotle. He couldn't own property. He wasn't an Athenian citizen. So his school was known for walking around, and he even was exiled for a little while, um, if I'm not mistaken. So back on the Republic, the themes of the ancient section that we have here, the ancient unit, again, are excellence, arete, virtue, excellence. That's one thing, sort of an integrity of the soul. And then listening as a way to improve that and make sure you're in check with that. Um, and eudaimonia is living well amidst a community, helping them also live well. And that eudaimonia is itself probably the highest excellence and the highest virtue. And then in the second, so okay, we're talking about themes, but we're also talking about like kind of the narrative arc through the Republic. After the Ring of Gyges is used to explain or contend that somebody who appears to be a good person but uses the ring for tons of evil would be a happier person and live a happier life than somebody who never used the ring, was thought to be a bad person, but actually had the purest soul. And Socrates and Plato want to argue that it was in fact this other character, the one with the pure soul, that would be the happiest. And justice is therefore necessary for happiness. Um, Kant says something similar that we intuitively agree that a good will is a necessary condition for happiness. We get frustrated when bad people are happy. We don't think they deserve it. Um, so it's yeah, Kant says it too in a similar way. He says something similar. It's not exactly the same. Nothing's ever exactly the same. Okay, sorry if I'm mumbling. I'm getting a little distracted, I guess, or maybe just self-critical. Um, the solution to this first movement is the tripartite soul, in which the harmony of the parts of the soul, reason, vigor or spirit or energy or enthusiasm, um, and the third one, desire or ambition or pleasure. Um, when these parts are in harmony and each is doing what they should be doing and they're working in order, like a three-note chord per se. Um, Plato says the parts are like attached. So like a spinning top has multiple parts. He actually uses the example of a spinning top. There's a part that spins and a part that stays still. Um, and so it's not truly three distinct parts as if it's anything like that. And it's not as dominative as some hyper-rationalistic interpreters want it to be. some very hierarchical, self-dominating interpreters, right? Because harsh hierarchies cannot sustain life. They breed fear and they breed violence, and they depend on violence to sustain them. So somebody who can be patient, um, and still maintain and promote that drive of life and that order, uh, would be excellent. Anyway, I teach that desire has to learn through failure, basically. This is a Vajrayana Buddhist interpretation as well. Um, which I'll remember to share. I have a video on Indra's Net with an Alan Watts quotation, which is really cool. Or it's a speech, and he explains Indra's Net, um, and the ways in which we're connected. And in Hinduism, people are the nodes on the net, but in Buddhism, experience and consciousness is the in-between states. And there are no people, there are no selves, there are no nodes. It's all just phenomenal inter-exchange. And this is, I think, an important reason why the soul reflects the city and the city reflects the soul, and they really can't be thought separately. And why Plato does what he does and why he presents it the way that he presents it. So when the soul is in harmony and you're listening to it and you're only doing actions that promote that harmony, preserve and augment and increase that harmony, then you're moving towards virtue and excellence. You should see how it all ties together. Then you're happy, then you're stress-free, then you're confident, you can commit to things, you can be convicted with your actions and your speeches because you just know that there's a solidity and an integrity to whether it's functional because it achieves something or whether it's um, just something you're very committed to for whatever reason internally, you know it's the right thing. That commitment in itself is meaningful and evidentiary, especially for a pragmatist like William James, who we'll read later. Um, so that's the themes in the first part. The theme in books 6 and 7, which really isn't what we're doing here, is about education, pedagogy, and dialectic. And so the soul's individual journey, um, what a reality is, what the forms are. Um, and I guess the final point of that is kenosis. So this will take us to kind of tie us into Aristotle as well. This is why I say it's the thread of the modern unit overall. Kenosis in Plato is the experience of a sort of transcendental divine unity. And it's a mystical communion with that unity in the Neoplatonic and Platonic traditions. I would, say that they don't call it the same. They may not even have gotten it from the Neoplatonic traditions. But the fact that this phenomenal experience is consistent, um, across historical cultural traditions has led to similar accounts of communion and oneness and religious experiences and mystical experiences in Christianity, in I'm sure Islam, Judaism, most religions. I think it's just a divine experience, a mystical experience. Um, and so you start to kind of work out not a religion, but I guess an intuition, for to use Bergson's frame, an intuition that can explain why people come up with religions and why they come up with philosophies. Um, and I think some of the intuitions people have about religion can be grounded in different ways, like the reincarnation of the soul, like Plato talks about that, in the Republic, um, or a heaven, the myth of I'm not super familiar with it. Probably should cover it. I don't. Um, So the way that he gnosis goes into Aristotle is that Aristotle thinks that every pleasure is different. So it's just valuable to have So reason is something you have to enact. Reason is something that is pleasureful, pleasant. But different experiences of reason, doing different things, reading this philosophy, reading Plato versus reading Aristotle is a different pleasure. Reading the same phrase, the same paragraph, or the same book in Plato at different points in your life is a different pleasure according to Aristotle. And I think he's right. Because it's the unique intertextuality or idiosyncrasies or culmination of historical affect and eminent influence um, at any given moment. So the different experiences have different pleasures because they are different experiences and they feel different each time. And if you neglect that, you can neglect the richness of life. And so that's why Aristotle advocates for a diverse life, like not, well, yeah, doing plenty of philosophy, doing having time for contemplation, but spending time with family, spending time with friends, going hiking, going to the beach, spending time with animals in nature, um, the pleasure of helping other people, of making a real difference in the world. So we'll talk more about Aristotle when we get to him. That's kind of how it all connects. Aristotle was a student of Plato, but he changed things up because it's not that he was responding to Plato, but he didn't want to repeat him. And so you can either negate what you don't want to repeat, or you can work in the space left open by it. In some way, it's still responding to or determined by Plato. Um, in some way, Plato still got it right, and Aristotle got something else right. So that's Bergson's point, is that every philosopher got it right. You've got to figure out how. And the harder thing is like when historical lives are pushed into I don't know. I don't want to speak on necessity, causal necessity, um, in any kind of committed position. It's tragic, things that happen. So I think we've been at this for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. Um, let's look at the guiding questions. So yeah, I asked, there are more. Why is listening important to personal well-being? What determines so we can read the answers on the board, and you should think about about that yourself, like I said earlier. What determines virtue? How can objects have different virtues from humans? Would someone be happy with the Ring of Gyges? Um, think about this. I want to, if for whatever reason you come to the wrong answer, I want to let you come to the wrong answer. I don't want to tell you right away, but I think it's obvious. But and how does the tripartite soul relate to the just city? In this one, I'm really thinking like just name the different pieces, name the virtue, wisdom, the part of the soul, reason, and the place in the city, the leader or the ruler. Okay, that's all one paragraph, right? If this was an essay prompt, hint, hint, that would be one long paragraph with examples in your own life. And then you would want to, and then I would want to make sure that you understood when I asked the same question, I was this drive student to connect each part with all three components. So there's, um, let's just look at some charts, for example, because that's the easiest way. This one's pretty good. Oops. All right. Uh, so if you look up something like this, I probably will post things like this um if you're in my online section. Sorry, I'm looking at these stimuli and getting distracted thinking about how some of this is not some of this is that super hierarchical, super self-dominating view. Even in Nietzsche, there's a whole thing about self-overcoming, like overcoming yourself. That's interesting. Like there's a place for that in philosophy. But I think there has to be a desire to overcome yourself. Um, and in that sense, really what's happening is that uh, the appetitive part of the soul is explosively experimenting and failing. So that's actually on a different day. We can start to see the tripartite here. I drew it. You can't actually see. Yeah, maybe you can see them. Um, this is a weird one. See my profile. Um, this is like down a ways. All right, so here's interest net. Uh, yeah, I was looking for this little multi-directional arrow. Desire kind of goes in every direction, and then some things fail, some things don't succeed, and desire may keep doing those. But eventually it adjusts. Um, so for example, it's very different to tell yourself, no, I'm just not allowed to have chocolate cake right now. I want chocolate cake. No, I'm evil and bad for wanting chocolate cake. It's ridiculous. Um, that's not what this is. The ruler does not do that. What instead happens in a just soul, wisdom itself, is that you neutralize the desire with the full consequences of the perception. So I think I want chocolate cake. I know that because I will gain weight from it, will get really excited and then crash, and because I don't like unstable rhythms in my energy levels, I prefer maybe more monotone, neutral energy, without crashing. Right? Maybe once I start perceiving the whole experience, not just the front end pleasure of eating the cake, but the entirety of going back to normal and resetting after eating the cake. So I think that I want coffee, and maybe I think the only consequence of coffee is that I'm wired and maybe a little irritable, um, or sensitive, uh, because of the caffeine. I'm overstimulated. Well, I may not pay attention to the crash that happens later in the day. Um, and I may not pay attention to the dependency that will take maybe a few days to come off of, where in the morning I might want the coffee or need the caffeine to wake up. Now, wisdom is for desire itself to not desire those things. It requires an elongated perception and intuition, maybe a hesitancy or a pause. There are different phenomenological methods to break up the experience and give you a chance to reconsider. Um, but like for again in Vajrayana Buddhism, this is just you shouldn't do this. I don't recommend this. It's not safe. You can truly get hurt. Um, but the gist of it is failing as quickly as possible. Why not? There's three branches: Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And Theravada is trying to avoid poison. Mahayana is trying to take an antidote for the poison. So Theravada is very discipline oriented. It's do this, don't do that. I'm simplifying, and I apologize. Um, Mahayana is about compassion, very often, and taking care of other people, and having self-compassion too for the grief and the mortality of it all. Um, and Vajrayana is choosing the poison over and over again to distill the essence so that you can transmute it, I guess. Um, Learn from it in a deeper way that I guess front loads the enlightenment or just gets you further along. Some Buddhists say that it's the only path that can achieve enlightenment in a single lifetime, whereas Theravada takes many reincarnations to come to nirvana. And I don't think of nirvana as dying or nothingness. Um, I think of nirvana as neither coming nor going, neither running nor chasing, avoiding nor chasing. And in Kant, actually, he says that respect for the law as such, which is the only thing you can respect. So I respect you as a member of the law. And I respect myself as a member of the law. And I respect myself to the extent that I follow the law. That's what the worth of duty is. Anyway, Kant says that that respect is a feeling of the subordination of my will to the universal form of universalizability itself, of law itself. Um, and he says that that feeling is neither a fear nor an inclination. And it always strikes me that he categorizes the same two potentialities or tendencies or directions uh, that form two of the three kleshas or mind poisons in Buddhism. Third one is wrong view, so just seeing things the wrong way. Um, so another good metaphor for this is the tiger and the strawberry. Tigers in the strawberry. There's a tiger in front of you, a tiger behind you, and a strawberry where you're at. You eat the strawberry, and that's a good strawberry. Kind of like you're in the right flow. You're not staying still, but you're also not racing ahead. And you're enjoying it. Those are the three parts. Not falling behind, not avoiding, not running ahead, not chasing, and not taking it for granted. Appreciating it, enjoying it, being grateful, and being kind. That is the essence of Buddhism. And the desire to save everyone. If you don't have the Bodhisattva, you can't be a Buddha. All right. Um, Good for 10 more minutes. So that'll probably take us through the Ring of Gyges. This is a great point. So the next video can just be book 4, but let's try to get through what I have from books 1 and 2. Republic. The Republic's ancient subtitle, On Justice, much understates the scope of the work. It begins as a discussion of the nature of justice, much in the manner of Socratic dialogues like Laches or Charmides, with Socrates examining and refuting successive views of his interlocutors on this subject. Um, so I don't think they say this. Maybe they do. Um, Book 1, Socrates is primarily, and Plato are primarily concerned with understanding the form of justice. What makes something just, no matter who does it, when they do it, how they do it, what they do. What is that? Um, a universal definition, a, an inalienable deduction absolute certitude in justice, goodness, security, and utopianism. Um, what is the form of justice? But in book one, Thrasymachus, who is at the house with Polyb, or it might be that Polemarchus is Thrasymachus' slave. Um, no, Polemarchus comes up. I think Thrasymachus is just there at Polemarchus's house. Um, yeah, it says at the top who's speaking. So that must be that's the page where Thrasymachus comes in, somewhere in here. All right. Oh, and let's look at that real quick. Here's a footnote on arete. Um, so in case it hasn't been clear yet, like an example I like to use is like a bread knife versus a butter knife, or a bread knife. That's not a great one. A bread knife versus a potato peeler, or a cleaver versus a pizza cutter. I actually use those. Pro tip: the arete of a cleaver is similar to the arete of a pizza cutter because I don't have a pizza cutter, but my cleaver works really well. It's long, and so I can get like a. And actually, when I worked at Pizza Hut, they use like a blade, a long blade, and you bounce it like that, and it curves. So, um, they have similar functions, so their excellences are similar. What makes an excellent pizza cutter uh, similarly applies to a rolling pizza cutter as to a blade pizza cutter or into a cleaver. But what makes an excellent potato peeler is not what makes an excellent bread knife. And what makes an excellent bread knife is not what makes an excellent potato peeler. Um, or an excellent um, soldier might be ruthless and vicious, or they might be discerning and compassionate. Um, an excellent businessman, an excellent carpenter has a different set of perceptions than an excellent teacher. One is very focused on the outside world. One is feeling the conversation with the students such that they can tell if they're getting what's being said or not. And we'll be checking in with them from time to time. It's a completely different set of skills, a set of activities, perceptions, different arete, different excellence, a different character, a different state of states of soul. Okay. Arete is broader than our notion of virtue, which tends to be applied only to human beings and restricted to good sexual behavior or helpfulness on their part to others. Arete could equally be translated excellence or goodness. Thus, if something is a knife, say its arete or virtue as a knife, is that state or property of it that makes it a good knife, having a sharp blade and so on. So with the virtue of a man. This might include being intelligent, well-born, or courageous, as well as being just and sexually well-behaved. Um, Traditional views tend to get published more so than fringe views. Anyway, we're not going to read most of book one. I just wanted to pause on the arete footnote. We'll probably stop somewhere around here. So, anyway, it's Thrasymachus who distracts Socrates and says that justice is not necessary for happiness. The unjust person is the most happy. This is a claim that Socrates can't let stand. He has to change course and focus his attention on this, even though he doesn't want to. At the end of book one, he's kind of made a fool of Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus is sweaty and gross, foaming at the mouth, um, aggressive. And And he's proven that you need justice to be happy, kind of. He started to. He's not fully satisfied with this definition. He spends the rest of the book still trying to do so. The rest of the Republic trying to do so. It's like almost 300 pages, 250 pages ish. So obviously we're not going to cover it all. Um, but okay. But in book two, he renews the inquiry, now agreeing to cease examining and refuting the opinions of others and to present his own account. He will say what justice really is and show that people who are truly and fully just thereby lead a better, happier life than any unjust person could. The horizon lifts to reveal ever expanding vistas of philosophy. Socrates presents his views on the original purpose for which political communities, cities were founded, the basic principles of just social and political organization, and the education of young people that those principles demand in books 2, 3, and 5. He decides that a truly just society requires philosophic rulers, both men and women, living in a communistic guardhouse within the larger community. So the guardians are both the rulers and the soldiers, and those are both considered, even though they're two parts of the soul, they are considered rulers together because the soldiers always side with the rulers. Um, the need, he also says that these philosophic leaders wouldn't want to be leaders and would need to be forced into it um, through a sort of wages, which are not honor or money, but the wages involve avoiding the punishment of having somebody worse rule over you. And so then, because somebody terrible, some tyrant is in charge, a truly wise person will say, I didn't want to do this. I prefer to do philosophy, but I need this to stop. Um, the need for such rulers leads him onto wider topics. He discusses the variety in nature and proper regimentation of human desires, and the precise nature of justice and the other virtues, and of the corresponding vices, both in the individual person's psychology and in the organization of political society. 4, 8, and 9. He explains the nature of knowledge and its proper objects, 5 through 7, which is kind of what we do in the second series on the Republic. The world revealed by our senses, the world of everyday traditional life, is, he argues, cognitively and metaphysically deficient in contrast with the forms. It depends upon a prior realm of separately existing forms organized beneath the form of the good and graspable not by our senses but only through rigorous dialectical thought and discussion after preparation and extended mathematical studies. Concepts can't get you to dialectic. You operate the dialectic through concepts and you unwork concepts, but that pursuit of truth produces dialectical understanding. And so reason is something that the person has. It's not something, or truth is something that the person understands and experiences. It's not something that can be reduced to a statement about the state of affairs in the world as we consider propositional truth in the modern period and moving forward. So if you think about the different kinds of truth across the semester, we have in the ancient philosophies of Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, we have truth as uniting with and experiencing the oneness of reality. Um, and we have truth in character in the person. That oneness of reality is how I read Descartes in the modern period as well. But Descartes uses that experience to then justify a science, a propositional science. So the experience of the validity of something that you can clearly and truly perceive allows you to take away some kind of claim. And this motion from perception of truth and quality to expression and sentence, sentential expression or codification, is the move to eidetic intuition as well. In Sartre, Bergson's kind of in the middle of there, where he doesn't necessarily think you can ever perhaps express anything or formulate takeaways in eidetics. And then finally, the fifth conception, ancient, modern phenomenology and eidetics in Sartre, and intuition in Bergson. The fifth conception is American pragmatism, where truth is a reflexive optimization between a biological creature and a mechanical world. Words take on meanings that best suit the way we experience them. Um, and then it gets more complex from that. Theories take on meanings which best simplify and best suit where we use them. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 because of any kind of universal rationalistic truth. For the pragmatist, it's very empirical. 1 + 1 is the way we talk about the consistent experience of that truth, of that relation in the world. And we continually make that more precise, and map different truths with each other in more complex ways, but the most efficient way possible. I didn't expect to talk about truth here, about the other kinds of truth. So we may be going long, but that's okay. Um, uh, the world of everyday life, the sensible world in Plato depends upon a prior realm of separately existing forms. I already read this, I'm just reading it again. Organized beneath the form of the good and graspable not by our senses, but only through rigorous dialectical thought and discussion. After preparation and extended mathematical studies, there is even a discussion of the basic principles of visual and literary art and art criticism. All this is necessary, Socrates says, finally to answer the basic question about justice. Not what it is, but why it must make the just person live a good, happy life, and the unjust person a bad, miserable one. Speaking throughout to no identified person, that is, directly to the reader, Socrates relates a conversation he took part in one day in the Athenian port city of Piraeus. All the others present, a considerable company, represent historical personages. Among them were the noted sophist and teacher of oratory Thrasymachus, and Glaucon and Adeimantus, Plato's brothers. Glaucon is an ambitious, energetic, quote, manly young man, much interested in public affairs and drawn to the life of politics. An intelligent and argumentative person, he scorns ordinary pleasures and aspires to higher things. Always especially attracted by such people, it was with him that Socrates had gone down to Piraeus in the first place. Adeimantus, equally a decent young man, is less driven, less demanding of himself, more easily satisfied, and less gifted in philosophical argument. After Book 1, Socrates carries on his discussion first with one, then with the other of these two men. The conversation as a whole aims at answering to their satisfaction the challenge they jointly raise against Socrates' conviction that justice is a preeminent good for the just person, but Socrates addresses different parts of his reply to a different one of them. To assist the reader, we have inserted the names of the speakers at the tops of the pages of the translation. Though in books 2 through 10, Socrates no longer searches for the truth by criticizing his interlocutor's ideas, so it kind of mirrors the early dialogues where Socrates, the historical Socrates more so than Plato, is taking apart um, a field of pre-existing positions without positing an alternative. It very much mirrors Plato's canon in that way, as well as Descartes' meditations, where the first meditation calls into doubt skeptically, or it's a rational skepticism that calls into doubt strategically with three uh, focal fulcrums or focal points that you can like get under and kind of lever apart everything, leverage apart everything. Book 1 follows a similar function, then books 2 through 10 start looking at possible solutions. and extended treatments of the discussion and extended considerations. Um, he proceeds nonetheless in a spirit of exploration and discovery, proposing bold hypotheses and seeking their confirmation in the first instance through examining their consequences. He often emphasizes the tentativeness of his results and the need for even more extensive treatment. Quite different is the main speaker in the late dialogues, sophist, statesman, philebus, and laws, whether Socrates himself or a visitor from Elea or Athens, the Eleatic visitor. There we get confident, reasoned delivery of philosophical results, assumed by the speaker to be well established. All right. I went down to the Piraeus yesterday with Glaucon, the son of Ariston. I wanted to say a prayer to the goddess, and I was also curious to see how they would manage the festival, since they were holding it for the first time. I thought the procession of the local residents was a fine one, and that the one conducted by the Thracians was no less outstanding. After we had said our prayer and seen the procession, we started back towards Athens. Polemarchus saw us from a distance as we were setting off for home, and told his slave to run and ask us to wait for him. The slave caught hold of my cloak from behind. Polemarchus wants you to wait, he said. I turned around and asked where Polemarchus was. He's coming up behind you, he said. Please wait for him. And Glaucon replied, All right, we will. Just then Polemarchus caught up with us. Adamantus, Glaucon's brother, was with him, and so were Niceratus, the son of Nicias, and some others, all of whom were apparently on their way from the procession. Polemarchus said, It looks to me, Socrates, as if you two are starting off for Athens. It looks the way it is, then, I said, which I think is kind of snarky, kind of funny. Do you see how many we are? He said. I do. Well, you must either prove stronger than we are, or you will have to stay here. Isn't there another alternative, namely that we persuade you to let us go? But could you persuade us if we won't listen? Certainly not, Glaucon said. Well, we won't listen. You'd better make up your mind to that. So that's the first question. Why is listening important to personal well-being? Why is the justice of the soul important to personal well-being? Well, the answer to the first question, why is listening important, is because the justice of the soul is a sort of listening to the soul. Um, that's the answer. And you can tell the valence when you're speaking to yourself, when you know something that's hard to put into words. That's an intuition. Let's see. Um, let's see. Sorry, I got distracted. So I wanted you to see the answers to listening question. Why is listening important? Helps your relationships, learning from others, adaptation, learning from your I think it says ignored wisdom. Um, in tune with environment, so open to receive. What is listening then? Listening is effortful, attentive. It isn't just auditory, it's also visual, it's also spiritual, it's also tactile, it's effortful. It's all perception as a whole, holistic. It's receptive and it's intuitive and it's sympathetic and empathetic. Okay. Um, all right, so don't you know Adamantus said that there's to be a torch race on horseback for the goddess tonight? On horseback, I said, that's something new. Are they going to race on horseback and hand the torches on in relays, or what? In relays, Polemarchus said, and there will be an all-night festival that will be well worth seeing. After dinner, we'll go out to look at it. We'll be joined there by many of the young men, and we'll talk. So don't go. Stay. It seems, Glaucon said, that we'll have to stay. If you think so, I said, then we must. So we went to Polemarchus's house, and there we found Lysias and Euthydemus, the brothers of Polemarchus, Thrasymachus of Chalcedon, Charmantides of Paeania, and Clitophon the son of Aristonymus. Polemarchus's father, Cephalus, was also there, and I thought he looked quite old as I hadn't seen him for some time. He was sitting on a sort of cushioned chair with a wreath on his head, as he had been offering a sacrifice in the courtyard. There was a circle of chains, and we sat down by him. As soon as he saw me, Cephalus welcomed me and said, Socrates, you don't come down to the Piraeus to see us as often as you should. If it were still easy for me to walk to town, you wouldn't have to come here. We'd come to you. But as it is, you ought to come here more often. For you should know that as the physical pleasures wither away, my desire for conversation and its pleasures grows. So do as I say, stay with these young men now, but come regularly to see us, just as you would to friends or relatives. Indeed, Cephalus, I replied, I enjoy talking with the very old, for we should ask them, as we might ask those who have traveled a road that we too will probably have to follow, what kind of road it is, whether rough and difficult or smooth and easy. And I'd gladly find out from you what you think about this, as you have reached the point in life the poets call the threshold of old age. Is it a difficult time? What is your report about it? By God, Socrates, I'll tell you exactly what I think. A number of us who are more or less the same age often get together in accordance with the old saying. When we meet, the majority complain about the lost pleasures they remember from their youth, those of sex, drinking parties, feasts, and the other things that go along with them. And they get angry as if they had been deprived of important things and had lived well then, but are now hardly living at all. Some others moan about the abuse heaped on old people by their relatives, and because of this, they repeat over and over that old age is the cause of many evils. But I don't think they blame the real cause, Socrates. For if old age were really the cause, I should have suffered in the same way, and so should everyone else of my age. But as it is, I've met some who don't feel like that in the least. Indeed, I was once present when someone asked the poet Sophocles, how are you as far as sex goes, Sophocles? Can you still make love with a woman? Uh, Quiet man, the poet replied, I am very glad to escape from all that, like a slave who has escaped from a savage and tyrannical master. I thought at the time that he was right, and I still do, for old age brings peace and freedom from all such things. When the appetites relax and cease to importune us, everything Sophocles said comes to pass, and we escape from many mad masters. In these matters and in those concerning relatives, the real cause isn't old age, Socrates, but the way people live. If they are moderate and contented, old age too is only moderately onerous. If they aren't, both old age and youth are hard to bear. In a way, Cephalus kind of gives us the right answer straight out of the gate. Um, The just soul is the one that has the moderate desires and has learned to do so. See, he's kind of pointing it to it as like once you get older, you can't do those things or you don't want those things. But he makes it clear that there are other old people who don't live that way and still want those things and didn't learn from it in their old age. Um, and so it's a matter of listening to the desire and listening to the failures of the soul and expanding the perception to see the interrelations of the reality, the causal interrelations of meaning and affect and history. Um, okay, we're gonna stop there. There should be a link for you to watch an outside, if you're in one of my courses, an outside video on the Ring of Gyges. It's actually a TED Talk. I love it. It's great. It's excellent. Highly recommend it. Not compensated for that. Um, I don't think I'm copyrighted from recommending it. So uh, go check that out. Part two, we'll read just the 2 pages I'll show you. We'll scroll down to it in this version. This is still book one. Yeah, here we go. So jump down to page 28 in the PDF out of 89. And um, it's book two. We'll start there. So it's only like 2 pages though, 2 or 3 pages. And then we'll spend the majority of the next video, part two of this series, on book four. And that may take book two and or part two and part three of the video. Hopefully not part four. It's about 20 pages. It might take as long as the apology, but it's super easy to follow. It shouldn't need a lot of scaffolding or a lot of connecting the dots for you guys. And I've already given you all of the overview, context, kind of top level explanation of what the primary source is saying. So thanks for being here. That's going to be it for today for this for this video. I didn't get to show off my shirt. I'll do that now instead of the animals. I'm wearing Bed-Stuy Field Day 2023 shirt. It's a shirt I got from when I was a teacher in fourth grade in Brooklyn, in New York City. So, yeah, again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sticking through. I'm sure this is a long video. I'll be back later, probably in the same shirt, hopefully, to finish out this series on Plato's books 1, 2, and 4 on Plato's Republic. We'll be at book 2 next time, and we'll do book 4 immediately after. It won't take long at all. Thanks, guys. Have a good week. Um, take care of yourselves. Bye.